okay? We will put that out, we will make it available to everybody. We will allow you a week to digest it if you like, and if you want to ask questions about it, we'll be happy to answer questions about it. But the majority of what you're going to see here tonight will be the final draft. Okay, so one of the initiatives was enhancing your organization and input, information and sharing, information sharing. Again, as Dr. Patrick talked, they would like to hear a little bit more from me about how things are going. This first year I've spent trying to just soak in a lot of information. How does this agency work? It's a little different than my last organization, both in size and the way they do things, different county. Inherently, police work is the same everywhere, but how it gets done is a little different in each area. So that's what I was looking at. I had the fortune of the last 5 years I was at my prior employment to work with a chief from the outside who came from a larger organization. And he has spent a lot of time looking and saying, just because they did it in that organization, why do we do it here? You know, and sometimes it's the size, sometimes it's what works. So I wasn't gonna come in here and say, okay, well, we're not gonna do any of that, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You know, first of all, my questions were, and the officers can attest, why do you guys do it that way? And it wasn't critical, it was give me the background on it, so maybe it's still the best way, okay? It might be different, but it doesn't make it wrong. So in that, we're working on, one of the action items was a quarterly chief's bulletin. Whether that goes out to the public or just internal. We are not hiding anything, we are not trying to keep information from people, but it's more of a quarterly bulletin for interior, and then maybe annual reports going forward. Enhance interdepartmental communication, both up and down. We do a lot by email. Email's great, but it's also impersonal. I like more personal, so we're gonna hold more departmental meetings in person, so we can then bounce ideas off people. Educate and involve the line officers and frontline supervision, periodic assessments of the strategic outcome. So as we present this to the department as well, we need input from the officers. Can we achieve the goals that we're asking, and can we do it within the time frame that we're asking? Also, as we're going through, these are the things we'd like to do. Are we getting them done? Are we meeting the matrix and the measurements that we are saying that we're going to? And we're going to conduct employee surveys to determine areas of satisfaction and dissatisfaction. This is not uncommon of organizations. We put it out, you know, how are we doing? What would you like to see different? Police work changes, the world changes. Do we need to make any changes? And that's where we can get some more of the input. When we talk about enhancing employee job satisfaction in the workplace, and we're talking about recruiting and retaining high-quality workforce, some of these action items are identify personnel growth and career broadening opportunities. What do the officers want to get involved in? I've sat down with many of them and asked, where would you like to get involved in this department? Do you want to be a field training officer? Do you want to get into defensive tactics instruction? Do you want to be an evidence technician? What do you want to get into? And then now we can work on how do we broaden that and get you to do that, okay? We're going to develop some leadership academy for all the ranks. We have 2 brand new sergeants as of August, okay? We will be sending them to some leadership classes, okay? So that they can help me run this organization, as well as look at our leaders that are not currently hold the rank of sergeant. Who is our next leaders? We've always got to be preparing for the next generation, okay? So that's what we're going to do through leadership classes, through, whether you're a sergeant or a command staff, or if you are not, you can still do that. We're going to enhance recruitment efforts by adding information to the department website and social media. We're going to get to that. The social media is a completely different animal. It's a different point that we're looking at. We want to increase that, but we want to do that, and some of the new recruits that we are talking with, they look at social media as one of the first things. What is your social media page? What does it look like? Okay, so it is a valuable recruiting tool, so we need to look into that. Okay. Working with the regional universities to recruit student interns and future employees. Identify a target and diverse applicant pool. Those 2 things sort of go hand in hand. And where that is for many years, we have always looked at, oh, we'll just go to the police academies. We'll go to the or to any certain areas, or will hold fairs and stuff like that. We need to start looking outside the box. The pool of officers coming into this profession is shrinking, so we need to start going out and looking for other officers or other people that hold a lot of valuable skills that can help us achieve our goals. So we will have to look outside the box, actually going to more universities, not just the ones that have police academies, but to all the local universities and say, hey, have you thought about a career in law enforcement? Well, I like to do this. Well, that's, I want to be a computer, work on computers. Okay, well, have you thought about a career in law enforcement? And this is how you can work on computers in a career in law enforcement. Okay, we're going to explore and create employee recognition program. We had an awards program in my last organization. When somebody did something well, they received a certificate, whether it was a unit citation, an accommodation, a life-saving, meritorious, that sort of thing. The officers here do a lot of good work, and they should be recognized for it. We will recognize them not only at the department, but we'll hold recognition sessions at the board meetings. Okay, we'll probably do that either annually, semi-annually, or quarterly. Enhance community outreach and engagement. Invest in a Citizens Academy classes. So there are several organizations out there that will do a Citizens Police Academy. It's roughly, it can be any length of time. The last one I was involved in was about 8 weeks. It lasted for about 2 hours, once a week for 2 hours. And what we did is we brought citizens in to really understand what we do in police work. When I was in that part of that, I was teaching the accident investigation portion, accident recon portion of just how we do things. And somebody asked, well, why do you have to shut down the road for 4 hours? So if we explain why, that it's a crime scene and we only have one chance to get that evidence, because once we open up the road and it's contaminated, people are like, oh, okay, I understand. So we do that and go in and we talk about defensive tactics, we talk about prosecution. Everybody thinks that we're the ones that prosecute everybody. Well, we make the arrest on the probable cause, we send it to a prosecutor, and they determine if there's enough evidence to move forward with a prosecution. So we feel that through a Citizen Academy, if we can explain some of the processes that people will understand when we say, we are currently, something's up at the prosecutor's office, and people are saying, well, it's been 2 weeks. I can't control the prosecutor's office. But if we explain that, then we're trying to let people understand how we do things, and so we have better communications through the process. Okay, plan and develop community partnerships that include regular events and listening sessions. This is going to tie into one of the other things that we're going to talk about, a citizen or a community advisory panel, and I'll get to that. We're going to develop and engage in, right there, community advisory panel, sorry. And what that is we're looking at bringing in several community members from different organizations, from the business realm, from the religious realm, from some of the civic organizations, the school district, and have quarterly meetings and ask them, okay, what are the most important topics in your group in this area? Because what we're finding when we're talking to some of these groups is they have the same goal, they have the same issues. So let's try to figure out where can we best put our efforts of the Chelsea Police Department. Okay? One of the things we'd like is develop a CERT, cadet, and internship program, and I'll go under each of them. CERT is Citizens Emergency Response Team. We would like to develop, and I will tell you right now, this is going to be one that's probably a year out at least, but we would like to involve and develop a Citizens Emergency Response Team. If there's a major emergency, we're going to need to call on all of our partners, and the citizens of Chelsea are our partners. So if we have a group of individuals that have some training that can help us with crowd control, that can help us block off certain areas, that can assist on if we have a storm that comes through with down wires, things like that, that we can free the officers up, that is extremely helpful. Also, we could then utilize them during our parades. We have a lot of them, and Chelsea has phenomenal parades, but it is a chore trying to get people to help us block off some of the streets on Main Street. That's where we would get our Citizens Emergency Response Team. They would work with us, we would provide some training, how to talk on the radio, those types of things, and then they would help us with those emergencies as they came in. Marty Coleman, our city manager, has a very strong background in emergency management, so he is going to help me, and we're going to work together on that sort of project. A cadet program. We've talked about how do we engage the youth and get them into law enforcement. One of the ways we talk about is maybe start a cadet program here for high school graduates that can come in, and then we can show them what law enforcement is like and maybe get more engagement into the community, in the law enforcement community. Internships program, that'd be working with the local colleges there are several that in criminal justice programs that they need internships so they can work with us. And then again, all those are recruiting tools for us. So we have to start thinking outside the box. We do need to look into a social media presence. We currently have a Facebook page. I'm not a huge social media person. I do have a meeting with somebody on Wednesday next week to find out what I don't even know. But we'd like to start getting into and reaching out into Facebook, Instagram, and then X. Now it's not Twitter, it's X. So we can then be more transparent and we can put information out there, what we're doing good, reach the community if we have to block off a certain intersection for an event that's going on or an accident or something of that nature, but also give updates of what's going on to major events that's going on in the city of Chelsea. So in that, we'll need to develop some guidelines for the use. When will we be putting, what will we be posting? And then some of the others are, doing an annual report. Marty's asked me to put together an annual report that I've already started, but how do we get that out to the rest of everybody else? The city website, okay, but are there other avenues? Yes, we can put that on our Facebook page so people can look at that at their leisure. And then that'll help us with information and crime prevention and safety tips. If you are subscribing to our Facebook page, I put out a couple times, like when we had bad weather, watch for downed trees, make sure, things like don't run your generators indoors, stuff like that. In the heat, where we can find heat relief, or in the cold, if you lose power, where you can find some relief stations, not only in Chelsea, but throughout the community, things like that. Invest in resources and workshops, and this will be expand our efforts to preserve human dignity and compassion in service and delivery. Develop a long-term training schedule for new and annual training. One of the things we are getting into more is we're going back to in-person training. Over the COVID years, everybody went into they did a lot of online training. That's fine, it's easy, but in the same sense, you don't get that one-on-one contact. Just 2 months ago, we brought in a gentleman who did a 4-hour block on implicit bias training, officer wellness training, responding to people in mental health crisis, as well as brought the Washtenaw County prosecutor in so we could have one-on-one conversations. They started their PowerPoint, and they came back afterwards and said, I cannot believe how engaged your folks are. This is fantastic. We can sit there and PowerPoint it to death, but man, we really like this engagement. And the officers would say, okay, but in this instance, can we do this? In this instance, where are we going with this? What do you need for us to enhance our report writing? So that was really good. And so we need to do that. And there are certain trainings that we have to do by the state annually, every couple years, and stuff that we can even reach out every 3 years. Annually, we have to have our taser, we have to have our firearms. Biannually, or every 2 years, we have to have our first aid and CPR, those types of things. So we'll map those out so we know where we have it, and if we have a low part, then we can add additional training and bring new training in. We're going to collaborate with other agencies, increase awareness initiatives, impacting police services. We already participate in a lot of those organizations. We work with the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department. We attend regular investigative meetings. Our investigator, Tom Gilbreth, attends those meetings, so he talks about what crime trends are going around, what we're seeing in Chelsea, are we seeing it elsewhere? And those are attended by not only Washtenaw County, but state and federal organizations as well. So we're going to offer, when we talk about offer citizens community training and police procedures and protocol, that kind of goes back to our Citizens Academy. Explain why we do certain things, and that may help when we do have the incident and we say, hey, we'll give you some information in about 5 or 6 hours, but we need to get X, Y, and Z done. People will go, oh yeah, I remember that in the academy. They do need to do that. They don't have a lot of information right now. It's all coming in. So again, we're trying to build that trust. We're trying to build that community credit, if you will. for when these incidents happen, and then we can understand each other. And then we're going to research grant funding available for training, vulnerable population. We're going to research grant funding for everything. There is some grant money out there. I will be very blunt. The federal government really likes to make it tough sometimes on how you write them, but there is a lot of grant money out there for us, and if we can do that and help ease the budget, then that's a win-win, I feel. When we're talking about the improved department efficiency and effectiveness, I used the term one time, we're making some changes, and I didn't realize that people were really freaked out about that. Why do we have to change? Every organization has to change. We have to change and evolve. Police work has to change and evolve. We're doing more with computers and cell phones and tablets and things like that than we ever have, because that's where the crimes are going. They're going on to those medias. So we're going to continue with officer participating in workshops on policy updates and revision. So one of the things that any chief does when he comes into an organization, one of the first things they do is they review all the policies. Okay? Do they meet the state standards? When was the last time they were reviewed? I have reviewed all of the current policies out of the manual. We've eliminated about 15 of them. Because we don't need them. We don't need a K-9 policy. We don't have a K-9 unit right now. They did at one time, and if we get a K-9 unit, we'll draft a policy and we'll bring it back because we want the most updated information. So there's things like that. And then we reviewed and made sure that things were there, that the state mandates, the federal government mandates, it's no secret, chokeholds are not. You have to have a deadly force situation to use a chokehold nowadays. Federal government mandated that. Yeah, our policy says that. Yep, it did before, but we need to review those. Set up a schedule for review to make sure we're keeping those policies updated. Not only for the city's protection, but so the officer knows what's going on, okay? So in those policy reviews, not only what you can't do, but what you can do. So those are things that we're changing. And we will continue to review those, address the policies with subject matter expert and legal opinions, so we do not put anybody at risk, not the city, not the officers, most of all. We're going to publish the policy updates on the website. I will tell you, you will not get every policy. There are certain protocols that we respond to that I will not put on there because I won't give away how we respond to certain things. Okay, it just won't happen. But a majority, that's very, very few and far between. There's probably, I can think of 4 that you won't see. Everything else will be there, okay? We're gonna analyze and implement optimal workload, staffing levels, patrols. Basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to see how we're doing it, how effective we are. We're gonna work a little bit more on different matrix to analyze, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? And are we achieving the goals we want? Because if we're not, we need to change those. Along the improving department efficiency, we're going to talk about modernizing the property room. There's nothing wrong with it, okay? The evidence is there. We had an audit done when I first came in, and we got really, really high marks. But there are things we can do to make it more efficient, okay? We're not utilizing some of the programs that we currently subscribe to with our report writing system that will allow us to log and track our property as we should. So when we do audits, it's a lot more efficient, okay? Doesn't mean it's wrong that they're doing it that way, it's just a more efficient way. We're gonna implement new crime statistic measures, maximize the officer patrols. One of the things that was brought back to me, they don't really like those monthly reports I put out, they're very hard to read. We've tried to whittle down some of that to make it more applicable, easier to read, but we're still having some things that we need to get our statistics better and then bring them back to the public better so everyone can see where we're at. And again, we're going to organize grant and budget updates, meeting all divisions to discuss grant. Again, we're going to work on grants, okay? We're going to try to get all of this and do as much as we can, achieve what we want to, but do it with the least amount of cost to the city as possible. Okay. Next step, like I talked, we will finalize the formal report. We will make that available to the public, and that will come out. It will be in by the end of the first quarter.
there's, so if you have questions for either the chief or I, we could try to engage and take some of your questions at this time.
We only have one microphone.
Yeah, we only have one microphone. Raise your hand if you have a question. You have 2 minutes per question, and we'll do our best to get in what we can before 8 o'clock and they kick us out.
Julie.
Julianne Chard.
Yes.
This is really nice, and I appreciate the effort that you folks have done so far. I also recognize that this is a draft. What I'd like to understand is when will you have a work plan that will be presented to the public?
The end of the first quarter of 2024.
Work plan with-
It will be a written plan that's in there, in a document form, that will be attached to the website, to our social media, that is made public. We're not hiding anything.
No, I understand. Will it be detailed enough to identify the benchmark dates, the metrics of achievement?
So,
Go ahead.
so yes to that. So included in the document, so I talked about the metrics, but I really didn't go over it. And so that document has a space to identify who's accountable for what responsibilities and in what timeline. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, so that's in the document that we're creating, there are 2 categories that we did discuss tonight. One is called accountability, where you identify who's accountable for what responsibilities, and then in what timeline. Thank you.
No problem.
Are there other questions?
Let me get my steps in.
Hi, my name's McCall. This is not process question or anything, just something that's, in my mind. Does any of this relate to, or are there changes or reviews of how people with mental illness are treated, how that's dealt with? Just wondering if any of that has kind of been
Yeah, as I
addressed
mentioned,
within this.
we already went through 4 hours. We brought in Jerry Narragain, who the city has used before, and he gave a 4-hour block on responding to subjects with emotionally disturbed persons or subjects going through mental health crisis. There are some other, Washtenaw County, they have several programs that through community mental health that they can provide. It's called basic, or it's, hang on a second, I wrote it down, because I knew this was going to come up. And it's something that we are going to start participating in. Behavioral mental health for first responders. So it's a program that it's about 20 hours. 16 of it is is in the classroom where you're working with an instructor, going back and forth, and then there's a 4-hour online portion of it. And it's something that helps with how officers can respond or when they respond, but it also gives a lot of information of what programs are out there, and that's something that we know that we are going to have to recognize with the fact that Chelsea is closing the mental health ward, the hospital is. So we need to work better. There is a county cares team that we can call out, but in the meantime, before they get there, we need to make sure our officers are up to date with the best way to handle someone going through that mental health crisis. We understand that if we're trying to provide somebody with a ride, putting them in the back of a police car, somebody suffering a mental health crisis can have a very, very traumatic effect on them. Okay, we do understand that. We do training on that. So we are trying to respond with the utmost care.
Thank you.
Good. That's good.
Two, I hope, quick questions. Are you at full staffing now? Do you have the officers that you want and need?
No. Are we at full staff? We are budgeted for 12. We have 11 full-time officers currently actively working. We have our 12th in the police academy. She will graduate in March. So in March, technically, we are budgeted staff. If you're asking me, do I have the staff I want? No, I'd love to have another dozen. But yes, we will be at full staff as of March. When she, she's hired, but she's not on the road yet, will be in March.
The other is, this is a plan in process. It's my assumption that you're probably already trying to institute some of these policies or changes. And is there an area in particular you're working on, or just some of all of it?
All of it, I guess I would say. When we're talking about training, I've explained some of the training we've already done. We've sent officers to FTO instructor school, so when we get new officers, they can help us train those new officers. We've done continued training. Everyone is up to date with first aid and AD CPR. We got new AEDs and CPRs within the department. I know some of you have seen the new police cars coming around, so that our fleet was aging. So all of these things my job is to make sure the officers have the tools and the knowledge to do their job as best they possibly can. So yes, we've hired 4 officers this year. We've had 1 retirement. Sergeant Kinsey retired. I knew that, and everybody knew that was coming in August of this year. It was a great loss, but he stayed for a full year with me, and I really appreciate him doing that during that transition phase. So it was immensely helpful. So yes, we are already working on these things. Like I said, we started a Facebook page, but we need a little more training on it. We've modernized from handwritten tickets to computer-generated tickets. Not a big thing, okay? And most handwritten tickets are not wrong, but now somebody has to transcribe them. Our clerk, Rebecca, has to transcribe all the handwritten tickets because the court system uses electronic. Everything has to be electronic. Well, when the officer writes the ticket and prints it out, it automatically sends it electronically to the station. The supervisor then will review that ticket, okay? So he approves it, it automatically sends it to the court. So now no one has to transcribe it. It's just modernizing, it frees up Rebecca's time, who does all the FOIAs, so it gives her a little more time to do some of that. So we're already implementing a lot of these items. We're trying to have had meetings with the officers to find out what are their interests, and we're already working on expanding our in-house cadre, so we don't have to necessarily take certain people off the road. We can develop small snippets that the officers can do for training one-on-one before, during, or after their shift, so we can continue to give them the training that they need.
Thank you, Chief and group. You've moved 100 miles forward since the last time I heard any part of this planning process, and I'm just so impressed and excited about the future that you've laid out here. I have a specific question though. Can you just tell me a little bit about, and I know it's requiring a casual response, but what do you think is the role of a community advisory group to the police department?
Do you want to go first? You want me to? Oh, okay.
Okay. So one of the things that happened with the community was just the breakdown and the lack of conversation. And so for the chief himself, he can't be in all of these places at the same time and all knowing. So the advisory panel is designed to give a larger swath of the community access to the chief by pulling in leaders from different segments of the city to have conversations about the needs of the city as a whole. And if there is some type of event or something that happens, it gives him the space to convene that panel immediately to have a conversation about what is going on. And I said this because I grew up in a small community at some point. I don't want to sound condescending, but oftentimes in a small community, we all know each other. And if something happens, there's someone who can reach that particular person or that particular family. And it could be a religious leader, and the chief may not have that same connection. And so it's bringing in different ideas, diversity of thought, and giving larger swaths of the community access to have conversations with him and input, and then keeping the organization abreast of what's happening on the ground in some of the communities throughout the city.
Yeah, what she said. That's what I'm looking for, another way to engage larger groups. I'm not trying to shy away from having events like this. I don't have any problem standing up and talking. But what is the need of the community? What is, obviously with the recent events that are happening over in the Middle East, we need to find out what is the best way to communicate to both the Palestinian and the Jewish community so we can serve those people, serve those communities the best way we can. So reaching out to, if we have community leaders or religious leaders that we can reach out to and ask questions to, or what are you experiencing? Is there a particular, if we have business owners, are they experiencing an increase of fraud? If so, is it something specific that we can start to work on? It's just that type of it. We kind of already have meetings with the school, but we would bring the school and are you seeing an uptick in something that we can help, you combat with? So those are the types of things that I'm looking for, and then by doing that, I can respond, and then as well, they can help us with those responses.
This is all so puzzling because before you took over, we had an average of about 280 call-outs per month. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. Less than 10 a day, less than 1 every 2 hours. Most of them not violent, most of them not a big problem. We now seem to have about 425 in an average month, and I'm not sure I've got that number exactly right. But about 100 of them, 125 maybe, are traffic stops. And when it was initially started, I thought Mayor Pacheco had a good idea, which is more traffic stops, people will be more careful. But a lady from the Transportation Department got up, and you may remember, Chief, at that City Council meeting a few months ago and said, we've got 5 pages of traffic stops and no tickets. And this dovetails with a story from a friend who was stopped by a policeman a few months ago and was told, you crossed a white line. No, you didn't. And the policeman, by way of, who was young, by way of apology perhaps, said, the mayor told us to pull everyone over. So could you talk about what is going on?
Unequivocally, absolutely, the mayor has not given any directive to the police officers. It is not her job. It's not her role. I have not given any directive to pull everybody over. The stats that you're talking about, absolutely. During COVID, everything shut down. At my last organization, we gave out the direction, don't pull anybody over. Don't make any traffic stops because nobody knew about COVID. We're coming out of COVID. I would bet that if you looked at some of the stats from this last year and compared them to 3-4 years ago, you'll see that the numbers are pretty darn close. Yes, we want officers out there. Yes, I give the officers the discretion to write a ticket or to write a warning if they feel, and I won't take that away. Okay? The officers are the ones that are out there on the traffic stops. They're the ones. And yes, if they thought they crossed the right yellow line or the white line, they're going to stop just to see if that person's intoxicated. That's their job, and I don't have any problem with that. Okay? If they weren't, if they're not intoxicated, have a good day. Okay? So I can tell you that the mayor has not given any directive. I have not given any directive to pull everybody over. It is still the officer's discretion. Does that answer?
Thank you. I had some questions about, this is the first meeting that I've attended, and so I was interested in hearing about how you are having maybe community partners help out with police work. Maybe there's too much work to be done, or in a emergency situation, someone might be able to get there quicker. But my question about that would be about the protections both directions. So where does the liability fall if you have community partners who are performing what would ordinarily be sort of police duties, and something goes wrong, or where does that community partner get their liability protection? Would it be from the police force, or would it be from some sort of personal thing? And my second question is, it goes right along with that. So, is where's the protection for community members? We expect that police officers are trained and that they understand that there are rights that citizens have and rights that police officers have, and that they're in full understanding of that. And so, where do regular non-police partners, citizens, find their protections to be covered if sort of non-police officers are acting on your behalf?
Maybe I didn't explain it correctly. The Citizens Emergency Response Team is not going to be responding to any type of emergency that a normal officer would. They will assist us. God forbid we had a train derailment. God forbid we have a tornado that comes through. And if we have to block off a certain area, we only have 12 full-time officers. Okay? Those officers may be needed for other tasks. And can we employ citizens who have been through this training to park their car and block a street? Much the same as we use citizens to help us crowd control when we have a parade on Main Street. Most of the people you see, we have some board members that participate, we have our DPW workers that participate, we have citizens from the chamber that come in to help us, and they will block off a street, so we keep the cars and explain to them, hey, the Main Street, we're having a parade, you'll have to turn around, okay? That's what we're gonna use them for. They're not gonna be responding to any other, emergencies or anything like that. They're gonna assist us just like any other that we're currently using, but we wanna provide some more training for that.
Just a quick question. Let's say someone gets angry, takes a crowbar and somebody's car is blocking the road. Who's gonna pay for that?
What about?
Where's that cover? Because they're acting on your behalf, is the city gonna cover that? Or would that be, just for the example that you shared, I'm just wondering, where's the liability fall?
Well, they would, that's part of the research, but they are afforded certain protections when they're working with us and under our authority. We tell people, even when they're in the parades, if somebody starts to get angry, don't confront them. Call out on the radio. Then we'll send a law enforcement officer there to handle that situation. If their vehicle is damaged, and we'll identify the person, we'll prosecute them, we'll go after their insurance company to fix that damage, just like we would if somebody did that to your car, whether you worked for the city or not. We would actively investigate that, try to determine who caused that, go after them, and make that part of the restitution. So we would do the same thing as if you're working as a CERT number or you're just a citizen that had this happen to you. Well,
I mean, it's not quite the same thing, so, if I put my car in damage done, I already know those my insurance, I cannot pay my police. I already know those insurance. But if, not me particularly, but if a person is a community partner and they agree to park their car somewhere and they don't confront anyone, they're going to parade and walk away, and someone, for whatever reason, it's just an example I came up with, call by your example. But like, if something happens to the car, where's the
they're going to be with their car. If there's any reason that they would need to utilize their car, they would be with their car. They're not going to park their car. We're not asking them to park your car and leave it and go 2 blocks to go do something. Okay? It's all the things to consider. It's the amount of training, it's the amount of numbers that we're going to have, it's all of that. The budget we would have for it, all of that has to be under we would have to consider all of that, absolutely. Okay, and if we would indicate, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know that process. I'm not an insurance adjuster, so I don't know where that falls. But we would work with those partners when we develop this program. I don't have the program, and I'm not snapping my fingers and saying it's gonna happen tomorrow. Those are things that we're gonna research and try to develop. But they are in other communities, so I'm sure we could reach out to those communities. I know Plymouth, I know Waterford, I believe Ann Arbor has a healthy CERT department, and we would be able to reach out to those departments on how those were handled. And ultimately, we're not forcing anybody to do anything. So if they were not comfortable, we would say then, we appreciate your support, but you don't have to participate.
Sure, I understand. My husband is an attorney, so I just. Okay, the question.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Okay, we got it. So, yeah, but.
Anybody else?
It sounds like a lot of the things you were talking about sort of aligned with the 21st century community policing efforts. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it sounds parallel. I know Washtenaw County Sheriff was sort of going through a process with that. I was on one of the subcommittees with that for a little bit, but so I like hearing the things that I've heard, but I do wonder what sort of checks or benchmarks will be checked back in on that matrix and like what that will look like in the future.
That will be in the final report. That's what we have to still work out, and that's where we are employing the help of SMART. They have gone through these processes in other communities. What matrix did they use? What measurements did they use? What timelines did they use? Are we having realistic timelines? Okay. There's a lot of things that were brought up in this plan that one of the things that SMART asked is, can you do this? We are not the size of Ann Arbor. We're not the size of the city of Detroit. You know, many of those communities have a community engagement unit, okay? So we are doing this so we get the officers involved, but we still have to maintain the officers' quality of life. I can order them to be here 7 days a week, but they're not gonna last that long, and I won't do that. So we've gotta be able to, what can we accomplish in a time frame that is beneficial for the city, beneficial for the department, beneficial for the officers, but also what we can achieve. If we give you a list of things that are unachievable, and we feel we have several things that are achievable, then it wasn't a good strategic plan. So those are still, and I would have to rely on SMART for the help on that, of what went well in other communities and how to measure those. So. All right, well, I thank you all for coming. Oh, we have some, okay.
Hi, I've been, when you talk about having community leaders to help out with in certain events or things that may happen in the city, in gaining these people, I've been involved in the city of Chelsea for many years on different events and been on boards, and to me, it's the same people on all the boards. I've run a business here in town for over 12 years. I was downtown, great area, and now I'm up close to I-94. It's a 180 in what happens up there. If you were looking for people to help with input, I would go with sections of the city. It may be more helpful. Also, I had an event in town here for many years and worked very well with the police for many years. It takes a lot of people to shut down Main Street, a lot. There's a lot of things that go on that people don't know, that is such a very secure area. I carried insurance for the event, but I had a rider on my insurance, and that covered all the volunteers, and they had to sign a sheet.
Nice.
I'm Pat Berard. I live at Pierce Lake Village. And I want to say the genesis of all this started in the summer of 2020 with the Black Lives Matter protests. Now, I know that some of you are here that marched under that. I might not ever be able to say this to you again, but I did some research on the Black Lives Matter, which are still going on at Middle and Main, and these protests were used to go after our police and demonize our police. Let me tell you about Black Lives Matter. In 2015, Patrisse Cullors, one of the 3 founding members of Black Lives Matter, said, "Step up boldly and courageously to end the imperialistic project that's called Israel." Also warns that if this is not done, we're doomed. Another BLM chapter claims Israel perpetuates genocide against Palestinians, recommends support for the BDS movement. Another founder of BLM called Israel an apartheid state. Fast forward to October 7th, 2023, and what Hamas did to the Jews in southern Israel. And you know what BLM said about that? They said it was a desperate act of self-defense. Now, if you want something closer, how about BLM Detroit? The few Israeli hostages are, in fact, Israeli soldiers and army generals who are responsible for keeping Palestinians hostage in the world's largest open-air prison. So those babies that were captured, they were Israeli generals. And this really disturbs me because we have people that sit on our city council that marched under the Black Lives Matter banner. And this is an organization that has shown itself to be anti-Semitic, and everybody worries about that, keeping our Jewish people safe. And this is what happened in our town. I think those of you who marched under this banner need to apologize to this city. Our city was called racist under this banner. Our police were called racist under this banner. You need to apologize to this city. And I think those who sit on the city council that marched under this banner and went after our police, you need to step down.
Was that a question?
Hi, my name is Carolyn Robbins. I served on the predecessor to this group. I just wanted to bring it more local to our community. This did not start in 2020, this started in 2015. Or this is when that conversation should have started, when my brother, a child, 17 years old, Eric Robbins, died during an interaction with Chelsea police that went largely unaddressed. So I hear what you're saying about the larger world implications, the global implications of what we say and do, but this is also a very real issue in our community. And my mother here, Maura, my dad, and my family had to put my brother in the ground at 17 years old because of problems that were not addressed in time.
I am so sorry.
Thank you.
No, I really am. I'm sorry that you lost your brother.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I thank everyone for coming, and I, again, appreciate your patience. I understand we don't have a final document yet. We have postponed a few things to try to get here. We did not want to postpone again, so we wanted to give you an update where we're at, give you a good dose of what we're going for and where we're at. But the final document will be done by the end of the first quarter of 2024, and that will be a public document. So, thank you all for coming.